be sharing my screen. Can you all see my screen? I think they can. Okay. So as Maria said, I will be discussing how to market yourself and find a new job during COVID. So I would like to introduce myself and say that my name is Olivia Chubala. I'm a graduate of Cleveland State University. I have a bachelor's degree in international relations, and I worked at a consumer reporting agency called Assurant for 3 years, and I held various roles, including researcher and senior legal and compliance associate. My most recent experience was in the HR field. I was an HR generalist at Sherwin-Williams in our consumer brands group and global supply chain division. Now, before I begin my presentation, I would like to emphasize that this is based on my professional and personal experience, as well as my own opinions. What works for some people does not always work for others. The same goes for professionals in different industries. Throughout this class, I'll be reviewing best practices and techniques that will help you level up in your career during these unprecedented times. I encourage all of you to take this information and mold it into your own unique situation. I will be going over this presentation in 4 parts. We'll begin with pre-work, followed by skill up. Next, I'll move on to networking, and then I'll conclude with the interviewing stage. Pre-work. What does this mean exactly? One of my favorite quotes is by Abraham Lincoln. "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Doing the pre-work is the most time-consuming piece, and it's crucial to laying a foundation for your job search, thus ensuring you are in the best position to execute your goals. Pre-work includes taking stock of your current situation and figuring out what you want to do, setting goals, updating your LinkedIn profile, modifying your resume, and any other steps you need to take before you begin applying. Before you start frantically applying to any and all open positions, think about what you truly want and are trying to achieve. Visualize your ideal and frame your search. Ask yourself, do you want to be promoted to a management position? Do you want to change careers entirely and transition into a different field? Are you even happy in your current role? Where do you see yourself in 1 year? How about 3 years? Set SMART goals and write them down. I implore you to research companies. Look at company reviews on Glassdoor and see what current and former employees say about working there. Are you willing to forego a work-life balance if it means that you'll be making a significantly higher salary? Are you open to relocation? I know that Cleveland's the greatest city in the world and no one could ever fathom wanting to leave, but would you be willing to do that for career advancement? These are important questions to ask yourself, and only you can answer them. Lastly, create a do not want list. It sounds exactly like what you think it is. Write down everything you do not want and are not willing to negotiate. This could be things like, I want to work in sales, but I am opposed to working in the field more than 50% of the time. Or I don't want a long commute. Pre-work. When setting goals, make them specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It's great that you want to run your own multi-million-dollar company and hit the Forbes 100 list by 2021, but how exactly are you going to achieve that? Is it specific or is it realistic? What are you willing to do to achieve these goals? Now, think back on the do not want list. It's very possible to achieve your goal of becoming a successful entrepreneur, but are you willing to do the necessary things to achieve that goal? By doing most of this pre-work through visualization and goal setting, you're in a better position to narrow your search and you should feel less overwhelmed. I want us to think of our career not as a ladder, but rather as a jungle gym. So what I mean by this is that I threw a lot of information out at you right now, asking you to set goals for yourself and really think about what you want for your future. I want to take away the stigma or the notion that the only way up is through the ladder or up the ladder. I encourage you to think of this as a jungle gym. You can take a lateral move. You can move in a different direction and not just have to go up or down. This quote by Paulo Coelho is stuck out to me for various reasons. An arrow can only be shot by pulling it backward, so when life is dragging you back with difficulties, it means that it's going to launch you into something great. I want to bring up a woman named Karen Clark. She started her career in the tech industry working for a company called Novel. She was in the marketing field. Her dream was to become the CEO. She knew that she did not have the experience at that moment in time to become the CEO of Novel. As Novel grew, she decided to apply for the chief marketing officer position at a much smaller firm. Karen was hired on, yet her choice to leave and accept a much smaller paycheck at a much smaller firm raised some eyebrows. That company was eventually acquired by a company called Symantec, which was a much larger organization worth billions of dollars. Karen was still not in the position to become CEO at this company that was recently acquired, so she accepted a CEO position at a smaller firm, evaluated at around $10 million. She continued on this sort of path until she ultimately achieved her goal of becoming the CEO at a multi-billion dollar industry. She took a step back to slingshot forward. This isn't always easy, and taking a step back isn't actually what you might expect to hear in a masterclass about pivoting your career and moving forward, but it's more common and much more effective than you may think if you're willing to put in the work and make some sacrifices. She took a very thoughtful approach and had a very specific goal in mind. Now, I understand that many of us might not be in the position or have the luxury to accept a smaller paycheck or make these sorts of changes, but it's something to seriously consider, and if you take a thoughtful approach and take a calculated risk, it can certainly pay off. I was fortunate enough to have had the opportunity to do this early on in my career. At Assurant, I was promoted twice since I've been there, and in my role as a senior compliance associate, I became restless. I wanted to move to a bigger, established company in a different industry. I completed the pre-work, updated my profiles, and framed my search. I accepted an HR internship at Sherwin-Williams, which helped propel me into my professional career. Although it seemed like a step back going from a senior associate to an intern, it was a strategic move, and I accomplished what I set out to achieve. I want to focus on marketing yourself and shaping your internet presence now. This is going to be a high-level overview, but I think it has great value. Now that you've framed your search and you have a better idea of what you want, ensure that you're marketing yourself accordingly. This is as simple as ensuring that your LinkedIn profile is updated with a recent professional picture of yourself and your posts accurately reflect your successes and your network. Create an engaging profile with an accurate job description and a summary. This is more important now than ever, considering that virtual recruiting is at an all-time high. LinkedIn also has a feature that allows recruiters to see that you are open for opportunities. This is a great feature, and if you're interested in seeking employment at a different organization, then I would encourage you to do this. It could sincerely benefit you. A word of caution though, if you decide to utilize this feature, people at your current company might see this. Although LinkedIn takes measures and prevents revealing this to recruiters at your current organization, they don't guarantee complete privacy. From an HR perspective, it can make you as the employee seem almost like a flight risk, and I would recommend that you utilize this feature at your own discretion. In regards to shaping your internet presence, here are my recommendations and some things to consider. If you're in the tech industry, for example, you might want to set yourself apart from other candidates and show off your GitHub account and all of the passion projects that you've been working on in your spare time or projects that you've worked on in the past. If you're in the creative or artistic field, work on your portfolio and make it visible to the public. I'm going to share with you a story about my time as an HR generalist. I was at my first offsite hiring event with our corporate recruiter. We had a very long flight, and after we settled into the hotel, we made plans to go out to dinner. When the recruiter walked into the lobby, I could not help but laugh at her outfit. Now, she was wearing all Sherwin-Williams gear. I'm talking a dorky baseball hat, a t-shirt, and a pullover wrapped around her waist. We could not have looked any different. I was in all black, and I was ready to go eat. So when I asked her about this, she said that she's always looking for good talent. Whenever she wears this kind of Sherwin gear, it's a conversation starter, and she gets to talking with people. She told me about a situation when she was in line at the airport wearing all of her Sherwin gear, and she got caught up in conversation by this man and his wife that were boarding the same flight as her. This man got to talking. He explained how he was currently in a sales position and he has so much industry experience, but he was tired and he wanted to move on to a different role at a different organization. She gave him her business card and encouraged him to apply. Well, he did, and he interviewed and was ultimately accepted for that position. Um, I was very impressed by this story, and it changed my whole perspective on marketing yourself and how you're potentially meeting future employers wherever you go. You never know who you might meet. This is not me telling you to wear your company swag all the time. Rather, it just goes to show that you do need to market yourself accordingly and be intentional, whether it's in the digital realm or in person. With all the social distancing going on, this situation may not happen anytime soon, but it does happen. Be intentional with your brand and how you market yourself. Resumes. Make your resumes succinct, readable, and relevant. It's very important that you make them relevant to the job you're applying for. Recruiters and HR professionals, on average, spend 7 seconds looking at each resume, and I can say that this is accurate and maybe even a bit generous. Make them readable. Please remove any awkward breaks, keep your resume in an easy to follow format, and stick to writing a one-page resume and a one-page cover letter. Now, you're probably wondering why even bother writing a cover letter if, a recruiter might only glance at your resume for a few seconds. And this is why. When you take the advice that I give you, you're going to create a wonderful, eye-catching resume. The recruiter or the HR generalist will take a closer look at your resume, and they're going to want to know more about you. The whole point of your resume is to give them a snapshot of what you're all about, but the cover letter gives you an opportunity to go deeper into what your accomplishments and your experiences are. The resume doesn't explain your entire narrative. It's only on one page. Make sure that your resumes are relevant. I strongly encourage people to modify their resumes for each different position they're applying for within reason. I discourage you from including all of the mandatory volunteer work that you had to do when you were in high school, unless it's relevant, of course, or any miscellaneous awards that do not pertain to what you're applying for. Please keep off your senior superlatives and all of that stuff. Also, I implore you to not include things such as team player, hard worker, self-motivated, or great communication skills. These are cliches and they're just fillers that are cluttering up your resume. Rather, you should quantify or show how you are all of those things. I found great success using the XYZ method when it came to quantifying my successes, and this is how it would go. You accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. This shows what you accomplished rather than telling. For example, instead of saying something like, I fixed customer issues, say, I proactively addressed customer issues and cut defects by such and such a percentage by implementing a team-wide debt initiative. Write down all of your professional accomplishments, no matter how small, and quantify them. Review which ones are relevant and include those in your resume. The whole part of a resume is to tell your story. This is a history of your personal and professional achievements in the reader's context and show how you are the best match for the job. Use relevant experience to draw connections to the job description. And I cannot say this enough, but please do not lie on your resume. You may get away with a little exaggeration here or there, but I promise you, you're not as good of a liar as you may think you are. It's astounding how many people continue to blatantly lie on their resumes and their applications. I've interviewed candidates that have lied about the most absurd things that are easily fact-checked. Employers want someone with integrity, so if you do manage to score an interview and even get a job under these pretenses, it'll become obvious once you start working that you're not, in fact, the candidate that you made yourself seem to be. Next, I want to talk about skill up. Use this lockdown time to equip yourself with professional skills through MOOCs, massive open online courses, offered through platforms such as FutureLearn or edX, where you can learn anything from JavaScript to Mandarin. Take a journey around TED Talks to gain knowledge on any subject from the experts, or tap into the millions of YouTube tutorials to broaden your skill set. I'd encourage you all to explore company-specific training programs and certification paths as well, or ask people in your company what they offer and are willing to pay for in regards to your professional development. Don't forget about your local libraries. As a library card holder, you have access to thousands of resources such as ebooks, language learning tools, and other digital e-learning platforms. So you've done some soul searching, you have a vision and a goal, you've polished up your resume, and your LinkedIn page has never looked better. You're not just ready to apply for positions, but you're ready to network. Virtual networking is incredibly powerful. Employers and organizations are hosting virtual career fairs, conferences, and the like. Now, instead of spending the money, time, and hassle to travel to a conference, you're able to connect with like minded individuals and professionals in your industry from the comfort of your own home. Look at organizations that you follow on LinkedIn or even do a quick web search and see what events are out there and register for any that interest you. Oftentimes, these events are free or at reduced cost. While the online space has made it easier to form relationships, when it comes to reaching out to people, the good rules of in person networking still apply. You wouldn't, for example, walk up to random speakers at a conference and just hand them your business card. Instead, you would memorize their names, research them online, and approach them with a meaningful conversation starter. As always, being prepared can go very far in social situations. Here are 4 ways that you can get the most out of these virtual events. After registering for an event, go back to the agenda and write down the names of the speakers you're interested in talking to. Look them up on Google, LinkedIn, and other social networks to find common ground or learn what they've been up to. Make note of the most salient pieces of information and think about how you can incorporate them into your outreach. Doing your homework goes a very long way in making the other person feel comfortable and receptive to hearing from you. Combined with the event theme, your research should spark some thoughts on how you'd like to engage your speakers. You can easily get someone's attention by preparing thoughtful questions that make them think or feel something. Come up with talking points and specific feedback to share soon after the event. Have a specific goal for what you want out of interacting with the speakers you're interested in talking to. Would you like to just ask them a question or actually have a one-on-one Zoom call? Are you hoping to turn them into a potential mentor, a job lead, or an industry connection? Figure out how they can offer the most value to you and be very articulate about your goal. Be sure to also mention how you can use your resources to support them as well. It's a two-way street and it should be mutually beneficial. Lastly, follow up and stay in touch. If you don't hear back from someone after more than a week, feel free to politely follow up as they may have missed your email or your message the first time around. If you do successfully reach them and they offer their time in any way, be sure not only to thank them, but keep in touch in the future. This can mean sending regular updates of what you're doing, as well as warm emails to acknowledge their milestones or offer your help for upcoming projects. Just like a friendship, a professional relationship requires constant nurturing. Be intentional, have something to say, and maintain your connection in meaningful ways. Now, networking can be exhilarating and engaging for many people. However, the same may not hold true for others. It can be daunting to put yourself out there, introduce yourself to strangers, and maintain a professional relationship or a connection. I'll admit that I do struggle with this at times. It can be overwhelming, but if you take one small step to connect with someone, it will give you the confidence to continue and to build your network. Remember when I said that I stepped away from my senior compliance position to become an HR intern? Prior to submitting my application, I reached out to someone in my Croatian network and I asked about the role. They ended up referring me and I got the job. I hesitated to reach out because I felt like we weren't close enough or that they were too busy to answer my question, and I truly didn't want to inconvenience them, but I'm very glad that I did. Your network should consist of individuals that are willing to help you and not hinder you. I do want to touch upon informational interviews. I think that they are often an underutilized approach to find out about a career or field that interests you. Informational interviews are not a job interview. Rather, they're a method of learning and gathering facts about a career. With that being said, please be very mindful when asking for an informational interview or reaching out to people in your network. I personally have been approached by several individuals that have asked to schedule brief phone calls to inquire about my position and path. They asked very insightful questions, and they were very respectful of my time, and I was respectful of theirs. I've referred some of these people to work for positions within my organization, and I've connected these people with other people in my network that could maybe better answer their questions. Please do not be the person that corners me in the office when I'm walking between meetings and bombards me with questions. When the situation happened to me, I suggested we go out for coffee so that I could talk with them more and see what their career aspirations are and how I could better assist. I found that I spent 2 hours listening to this individual complain about their boss, about their coworkers, and no surprise here, but all they wanted was a referral. So, needless to say, I did not refer them to the position that they wanted. Um, Please don't feel that you are entitled to a job or that someone in your network is obligated to refer you for a position solely because you guys know each other. Congratulations, you've progressed to the interview stage. So, when interviewing, preparation is key. Again, do your research, learn about news and recent events regarding the employer as well as the interviewer if possible. Know about the products and services that they offer and any key shareholders. It will help if you have a basic understanding of these facts as well as the position you are interviewing for. If you're unable to find this information through your own research prior to your interview, feel free to ask the interviewer at the appropriate time. Now, I do want to say that this is very important. One example I want to share is that when I interviewed for Sherwin-Williams, I did my due diligence and knew that the company at that time recently acquired Valspar. During my interview, I asked, what are some of the HR challenges to managing this acquisition? How have the legacy Valspar employees handled the acquisition? And what steps has human resources been taking to support this change in terms of culture and headcount? Not only was I genuinely curious as to how the company was managing this change, but I wanted to prove that I did my research and came prepared. I will say I was shocked when I began phone screening candidates, and many of them didn't even know that we were a paint company. Please don't be this person. Upon starting the interview, be ready to describe your personal narrative. This should come naturally to you, but it doesn't hurt to prepare. Recount the experiences that brought you to where you are today. Have you always been passionate about this particular field, or did some experience or catalyst alter your course and bring you to this point? You're welcome to be personal and share your own experiences. However, please be cognizant of the details that you share. There is a very fine line between sharing personal experiences and oversharing. Your narrative should be relevant and pertain to your professional aspirations and the position you're interviewing for. Describe what you're most proud of. It could be anything. Did you woo a former client and earn their business back? Think about what you're most proud of and highlight your strengths. What makes you different? Sometimes this can be a loaded question. You want to set yourself apart from the other candidates, but you don't want to come across as someone with completely unrelated experiences. Emphasize your strengths and explain what talents you bring to the table. When an employer asks you about why you want to leave your current role or what you did not like about your previous job, please do not insult or bash your previous employer. One of the biggest mistakes you can make in a job interview is bad-mouthing your past or present employer and the company. This runs the risk of instilling fear in the hiring manager that at some point down the line, you'll say the same thing about them. You don't want to come across as someone that's disloyal, unappreciative of opportunities, or frankly, a gossiper. Do your best to, again, steer the conversation in a positive way. Talk about the positive aspects of your previous job, what you learned, and explain that while you are grateful for the experiences, you're looking for a company or position that best fits your current needs and aspirations. Virtual interviewing. So, virtual interviewing etiquette should be the same as in person interviews. Please make sure that you dress professionally and ensure that you're in a clean environment with no distractions. Please avoid sitting in any messy areas. Interviewers do not want to see your messy bedroom in the background. How do you expect your prospective employer to believe that you're detail-oriented and organized when they see your, dirty laundry in the corner of the screen? Sit in a well-lit area, turn your cell phone and all your devices on mute. It's very important to also test your technology beforehand. If you spend the first 10 minutes of your interview fumbling around to get your audio and video working, it takes away valuable time in your interview, and it also creates the impression that you're unprepared. Practice and rehearse some answers to common behavioral questions, but please don't memorize them or just read off a script. Answer them naturally. While the interviewer may not see the notes at your desk, that doesn't mean that they can't tell that you're reading off of a script. Please do not complete a web search also while you are in the middle of an interview. That happens from time to time, so please don't do that. Just answer as honestly and openly as you can. If you'd like, keep a couple of sticky notes and a copy of your resume next to your desk, but don't have pages of text at your side. Monitor your body language. You can't firmly shake the hiring manager's hand or as easily exude enthusiasm via video, but what you can do is monitor your body language. The main way to communicate confidence is to sit up straight, smile, and keep the camera at eye level. Research shows that employers are more likely to remember what you said if you are looking at the camera and you maintain eye contact. So again, focus on the camera when talking. Try not to focus on the image of the hiring manager at the other side of the screen. Now, once you've completed the interview, thank them for their time. Follow up with a thank you email, and if you have one last question that you forgot to ask in the interview, then this would be an appropriate time to ask. I found that emailing the interviewer or interviewers within 24 hours after completing your interview is best. I typically send a thank you email a couple hours after my interview, but it's totally up to your discretion. Now, it's very important that when you are in the interview that you ask questions. Interviewing is a two-way street. So come prepared with questions to ask, such as what does success look like in this position and how do you measure it? How would you describe the company culture? What do you see as the most challenging aspect of this job? And what does a typical day in this role look like? Excuse me. So, interviewing is very exciting, and this is the perfect opportunity to create a relationship with representatives of the company. Be friendly, cordial, and try to relax. I know that's easier said than done, but if you've done your research, prepared your space, and you're donning your your favorite blazer, your favorite suit, you'll feel the part. Act humble but confident. You're trying to sell yourself to the company and tout your accomplishments, but do not throw people under the bus in the process or come across as egotistical. Show up 5 to 10 minutes early to your interview. There's no point in hanging out in the virtual waiting room for 30 minutes, but by logging on a few minutes early, you can ensure there are no last-minute technical issues and you're ready to go. Please be passionate about the opportunity and energized to talk to the person and energized to talk about the position. I've interviewed candidates that have some great qualifications. They look great on paper. However, after speaking with them over the phone or seeing their sheer lack of enthusiasm in the interview, it makes me question whether they even want the job, especially if they're not asking good questions. Lastly, make sure you listen to what they have to say. I have interviewed for positions that appear one way, but when I speak with the recruiter or the hiring manager, it seems like a completely different position than what I originally applied for. Listen to what else the interviewer has to say, not only in regards to the position, but to their questions. If you need further clarification or require a better understanding of the question they asked, don't hesitate to ask for clarification or have them repeat the question. I've interviewed candidates that seem completely disinterested or not paying attention to important details that I'm describing, and it seems almost rude, and it also seems that you don't even care, or if you're oblivious to what's going on. So listening is very crucial. So today we've discussed how to evaluate and pivot your career by writing down your goals and doing the necessary pre-work to lay the foundation to frame your search. Set SMART goals and truly think about what you want to do and what you're willing to do to achieve that. Your social media profiles and your presence should be a reflection of who you are and what you're hoping to accomplish. Make your portfolios and blogs accessible and ensure your resume is succinct, readable, and relevant. Quantify your work by utilizing the XYZ method. Sharpen your skills or learn new ones. And don't forget to post about these new skills on your social networking profiles. Find out what skills you're lacking and learn on how to improve upon them. Attend virtual meetups, conferences, and career fairs. Widen your network and foster connections with with like-minded professionals or seek out mentors and leaders in your industry. Arrange informational interviews with professionals that inspire you and be sure to thank them for their time. Create job notifications and be ready to apply to any positions that come up that interest you. Prepare for your virtual interview by putting your best foot forward. Practice your responses for behavioral questions and ask the interviewer important questions regarding the position. Make sure to be confident. These are unprecedented times that created immense disruption in our personal and professional lives. That does not mean that it's impossible to continue on your own path to success. Periods of disruption can lead to innovation and growth. Life will set you back at times, but you can always shoot yourself forward. You've all taken time out of your afternoon to listen to this masterclass, and that alone is a step in the right direction. That means that you want to improve upon yourself. We have a wonderful network of Croatian professionals in many different fields and at many different stages in their careers. Use ACAP to foster connections and enhance your own network as well. So, with that being said, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I want to ask, how important do you think using LinkedIn is, and how would you best network with people off of LinkedIn or within LinkedIn?
That's a great question. So, what I would suggest is to start small and start with people that you've worked with. It could be connecting with current coworkers, former coworkers, and you can certainly endorse these people for great customer service skills, for any of the accomplishments that they've done, and make sure that people are aware that you've worked together. Then I encourage you to build off of that and see who else is in their network. This is when I would strongly encourage you to also attend these virtual conferences and meetups. I've attended several in the past couple months in the tech industry, and it's been incredibly beneficial. I've made many connections with people all across the world, all across the US, and it's just remarkable to kind of continue building upon each other. And for example, one individual that connected with me is asking me what programming languages that I have been working with. I explained to her what I've been working on and what I'm about to work on. And she said, "Oh my gosh, wow, I'm about to start this, learning about this Python thing. I would love to have a coding buddy." So we're going to be working on that together, and we're going to be learning, together in that way. So use your network, use any of the meetups that are going on. But in regards to building upon your network, start small, start with your inner circle, and then branch out.
If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to use the chat box if you don't want to be on audio.
Thank you, Mara.
Here, Olivia, I'll ask my question. Might be like two questions. Just kind of a couple pointers. If you, let's say, you're a stay-at-home mom and you have a big gap, and I, have a couple of those people in my circle.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say you're changing your career, how to fill in that gap or best promote yourself, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So in regards to large gaps in employment, employers, they definitely will be asking about that. And I think it's very important to be honest. I know I've interviewed candidates and I've noticed they haven't been working for 5, 6, 7 years. And, I do ask, hey, have you been doing anything in the meantime? What's going on? And you just be honest. Say, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was not, I was out of the workforce, so to speak, and I've been doing these things in the meantime. So I'm ready to get back into the workforce, and I intend on staying in the workforce for the duration of my professional career, whatever that may be. I think that if you don't explain it and if you're evasive, then hiring managers and interviewers are going to jump to crazy conclusions. They're going to think, oh, this person was incarcerated for 5 years, or, something crazy happened. None of those things are necessarily bad, but it's very important to be open, honest, and upfront. In regards to pivoting your career, I'll answer that question. But if you are trying to make a big transition in your career, I am making a big transition into my career, so I'm trying to take small steps to pivot myself in that direction. Many people take what I call hybrid roles or hybrid positions. If you are maybe taking a leap and going from a nursing job and you want to go into the artistic field and you want to, be a fine arts curator or something along those lines, then take small steps and show, the hiring manager all of those little steps that you've taken, or do a hybrid role. Maybe take on more creative positions in the nursing field that you're in right now, or the nursing job you're in right now, and sort of pivot yourself in that direction. I'm making a transition from HR into tech, and I am considering taking, those hybrid roles, maybe an HR analytics role or an HR, admin role. So there's little steps that you can do and take, so that way it's not such a big jump or a big leap and from X, A to C, A to B, or what have you. Maria asked, what is a good source of available jobs and what websites would I recommend? There are so many other options besides Indeed and ZipRecruiter. LinkedIn has a great source of jobs. You can actually access all of the ones that employers post on their sites. So I'd encourage you all to follow any companies or employers that interest you. I have a list of some that I just added and that I just started following, and they have a jobs and a career section on each of their profiles. And actually, it's much more user-friendly, I find, instead of going on their careers website. That's just my own personal preference. But what I'd encourage as well is to join groups and organizations. I am joining, or I have joined, a Women in Technology organization. And they actually have their own career section, which I had no idea about. Turn on those post notifications and work those sites. I don't have any that I would say in particular. I think it's a little bit of whatever you stumble upon, but LinkedIn is also a great source. And turn on those notifications if possible.
Hi, Olivia, I have a question. When you're looking to relocate for a job, how can I better market myself against people who are locally based?
That's a great question. And there's a couple different ways that you can go about doing that. First of all, see if your employer, I'm working under the assumption that you'll be working for the same employer. And if you are, I would see what options your current employer has for relocating you to that other office. So if you do want to move out of state, you do want to move to a different area, see if they're willing to offer you any sort of stipend or allowance. I do understand that now with, the sort of economic downturn, companies are kind of tightening their purse strings, maybe aren't so willing to do that, but it doesn't hurt to ask. A lot of companies offer that reload package. If you are just trying to move to a different state or a different city and relocate, and not necessarily stay with your current employer, I would encourage you to, sometimes this is a little bit of a trick, and I would say when you include your address on your resume, you can put down an address of your friend's house who lives in that state if you're willing to relocate there, or kind of, explain in your cover letter that you are relocating and put a deadline down. I think it's difficult to do that. It's really hard if your employer isn't willing to relocate you, but that's certainly something that can kind of get you in the door. Another trick, I suppose, is to just, as I mentioned, be upfront and be honest with them and give them an exact timeline of when you're moving there. So if you just say, oh, well, I plan on, I'm going to be moving to, Alabama. And they're like, okay, great. We're very interested in you. Although you do live in Ohio, you say you're relocating to Alabama. When do you plan on doing that? What is your address? What steps have you taken? And how is that gonna happen? So you just have to have a plan in place and show that you have exact measures in place for that. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Olivia, I have a question. How important is a CV? Does that kind of depend on the job or the field?
So, great question. It is dependent on the job. So again, kind of going back to my point about resumes, making them succinct and readable, relevant. I know I've been inundated with tons of resumes at one point, and it's hard to filter through them when I've got so many other things going on in the HR realm. So I would create one and do your best to make it as nice as you can, list all of your achievements and such. I would just really focus on the resume aspect. I think that's secondary to the resume. It's still very good to have, though.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your presentation, and especially a lot of the concrete suggestions that you make. It really you can think about them regardless of where you are in, you know, what stage in your career. And the one thing I wanted to say about questions, if we were successful in recording this, there might be more questions that come through our Facebook or our website. So there might be people out there who might add more questions for you, if you don't mind coming back with your expertise and helping us answer some of those.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that I forgot to mention towards the end, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn. I did not post that, but I'd be happy to put that in the chat and connect with me via email. I'd be happy to even put that down as well and answer any questions that come along, even for people that watch this recording.
Thank you. I'm going to just pause for 3 or 4 seconds to give anyone an opportunity if they want to ask one more question. If one of our team members please could look, or Olivia, you can see the chat if anyone has any questions before we wrap up.
I do not believe so.
Okay. So thank you once again, Olivia. That was very interesting. And I'm already thinking of other ways that maybe we could take one of the elements that you discussed and broaden it, maybe sometime in the next 6 months or so. So we'd like to invite you back to do another masterclass for us. This was very informational. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll post my LinkedIn in the chat, and I appreciate all of the time that you guys spent in listening to me today.
Thank you, Olivia. Bye.